This is Chesterton Radio, your home for podcasts of works by G.K. Chesterton, plus drama, comedy, mystery, science fiction, big bands, and much more. The soundtrack to your Chesterton day at chestertonradio.com.
65
The Jack Benny Program, presented by Lucky Strike.
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky, strike, be happy, go lucky strike today.
I choose my cigarettes with care, yes, I demand perfection, and Luckies are so round and firm, they're topped in my affection.
I write a column full of news, and I've a scoop for you. A Lucky is a happy smoke, so mild and so rich too.
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky, strike, be happy, go lucky strike today.
Enjoy your cigarette. Enjoy truly fine tobacco that combines both perfect mildness and rich taste in one great cigarette, Lucky Strike. For only fine tobacco gives you both real mildness and rich taste. And LSMFT, Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. So friends, be happy, go lucky. Try a carton of Lucky Strike.
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky, strike, be happy, go lucky strike today.
The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, the Sportsman's Quartet, and yours truly, Don Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, it is morning, and as we look into Jack Benny's home in Beverly Hills, he and Rochester are going over the bills that have accumulated during their absence in Europe.
Here's a bill from the gas company, $8.50.
$8.50.
Electric bill, $9.75.
$9.75.
Here's a bill from the telephone company, $6.40.
Wait a minute. Why do we have to pay the telephone company?
They couldn't get in to open the coin box.
Oh. I wonder how much my share will be this month. Now, let's see. I paid my cast and writers for the first show. Oh, yes, I have to mail a check for commission to my agent.
I've been meaning to ask you about that, boss. How does your agent get to the bank?
He doesn't. The warden deposits it for him.
Say, boss, isn't your agent in for 20 years?
Yeah, but he gets 10% off for good behavior. What else have you got there?
Here's a bill from your dentist. He wants $100 deposit.
My dentist? Oh, yeah. Send that bill to my sponsor. After all, it was his idea, yeah.
Your sponsor?
Yeah, he thought it'd be nice for television if I had my 5 front teeth fixed.
Well, what's wrong with your 5 front teeth?
Nothing. He wants to put LSMFT on it. But I don't know whether I'll do it or not. Gee, smiling commercials. Be happy, go lucky. You know, the next thing you know, he'll want me to...
I'll get it. Hello? Well, how are you? Yeah, we've been back from Europe 3 weeks now. Sure, you can come home anytime you want to. Goodbye.
Who was that?
Your parrot.
It'll be good to see Polly again. Now, let's finish these bills. I don't want to waste all day.
Yes, sir. Here's one for your automobile insurance. Wait a minute, boss. This premium seems too high. It's $93.50.
No, Rock. That's not the premium. That's what the car's insured for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see it right here. It's covered for fire, theft, and rheumatism.
Oh, stop. Is that all?
No, there's still one more bill. It's from the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. It's for $30.20.
That's right. I was up there for 3 days. I see my room was $10 a day. That's $30. Pay it, Rochester.
What's the 20 cents for?
I gambled a little. up all night trying to break even. You know, sometimes... Now I get it. Hello? No, the address here is 360 North Camden Drive, not 350. Goodbye. Stupid parrot. Some birds can't find their way to Capistrano. She can't even find her own house. Now, Rochester, take all these bills and... Come in. Well, hello, Dennis. What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Every time I come to your house, you ask me the same thing.
What?
For 10 years, I've been coming to your house, and it's always, hello, Dennis, what are you doing here?
Look, kid.
Just once, I'd like you to say, hello, Dennis, glad to see you. Come in and stand on your head.
Dennis, why should I ask you to stand on your head?
Well, you know it's a long walk. My feet hurt.
Well, that's ridiculous. Dennis, you only live 2 blocks from here. Why is it such a long walk?
I always get lost.
But there's nothing to it. Why didn't you just come down Rexford and walk up Sunset Boulevard?
Oh, I'm afraid to pass Gloria Swanson's house.
What?
If she killed William Holden, what chance has a jerk like me got?
Look, Dennis, do me a favor, will
Yeah?
you? Go outside, I'll close the door, and ring the bell again.
Okay.
Well, hello, Dennis. Come on in and stand on your head. Now leave me alone.
Yes, sir.
Now maybe I can... Not on the piano! Look, kid, I didn't ask you over here, but if you came to let me hear your song, let's hear it and then go home.
Okay.
Hold it a minute. Yes?
How do you do? I'm from the telephone company.
Oh, yeah, it's right over there on the wall.
Thank you. My, it's heavy this time.
Yes, business was great when the Shriners were in town.
I'll dump them out right here on the tape.
Gee, look at all those nickels.
Here I go to divide the dough, and when I'm through, I'll scrammy. 1 for me, and 1 for you, and 5 for Uncle Sammy.
Yes, mustn't forget him. My agent did, and look where he is. Now, look, mister, would you mind counting those coins in the other room?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dennis. Let's hear your song.
Yes, sir.
Lovely work of
That was fine, Dennis. Very good. You can go home now if you want to. Dennis, I said you can go home now. Dennis. Oh, isn't that cute? He sang himself to sleep. See, he must have walked a long way to be that tired.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, Mary. Come on in and stand on your head. I mean, come on in.
What are you talking about?
Nothing. Dennis, wake up.
Huh? Oh, hello, Mary.
Hello, Dennis. By the way, Jack, I haven't seen you since last Sunday. Did you read all the reviews on your opening program?
Yes, most of them. I thought they were nice.
The reporter in Variety said you were better than ever.
I know.
Luella Parsons said you got loads of laughs.
Yes.
Hedda Hopper said you were dynamite.
Yes, I know.
Erskine Johnson said you weren't the least bit funny.
Him I'm suing. What other write-ups were there?
Did you read the review in the Herald Express?
No.
You can take that one to the Supreme Court.
No kidding. Was it that bad?
Was it?
I thought you went home. How can I? My shirt's in your bending.
Well, go and get it. Mary, getting back to those reviews, I can't understand it. Everybody seemed to like the show.
Even my mother.
Oh, your mother. What does your mother know? She liked it?
Yes, I got a letter from her yesterday.
Oh.
I brought it over. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yes. I mean, if she liked my show, certainly go ahead.
Okay. My darling daughter, Mary, just a note to tell you we heard Jack's opening program and thought it was very good.
Well.
It's about time. We'll soon be able to see Jack, too, as we have a new television set.
Oh.
Papa didn't want to pay all that money for a set, so he built his own. Something went wrong, though, and when it was finished, the screen was 1 inch high and 7 feet wide. It works all right, but Hopalong Taxi looks like he's riding a snake.
That's silly. A screen 1 inch high and 7 feet wide.
I wonder what Faye Emerson looks like.
Read on, Mary.
Here's some good news about your sister, Babe.
About Babe? Oh, goody.
Babe is very upset because she wasn't selected to go to the Atlantic City Baby Beauty Contest as Miss Plainfield, and I don't blame her. Even though I'm her mother, I must admit that Babe has the prettiest pair of knees in New Jersey. It's a shame they're in the back.
Lucky her feet are on backwards. She'd look awful.
Jack.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
No other news except that I'm very angry at your father not speaking to him.
What?
Last month was our anniversary, and I told him I wanted to see South Pacific. So he took me to New York and shoved me on a banana boat.
Good.
Have to close now, but we'll write again soon. Your loving mother, Valley High Livingston.
You know, Mary, if your mother lived here in Hollywood, I'd give her a job as a writer. I'm not kidding. Say, excuse me, will you?
Where are you going?
I'm in the kitchen. I want to get a glass of water. Answer that, will you, Mary?
Okay. Hello?
Well, how you live? What are you doing at Treasure Island?
Well, I had nothing to do, so I dropped in at Jack's house.
Social or Bendix?
Just social, Phil.
Where is Jackson?
He'll be right back. He's getting a drink.
No, don't tell me the old man is finally gone.
Here he is now. Oh, Jack. Phil.
Oh.
Hello? Hiya, Jackson. Been nipping a bit, huh?
Yes, Phil, I had a glass of water. Nice, plain, cool water.
Water?
Yes, water. What's in your swimming pool?
Remley, we're playing Sunset Boulevard.
All right. What did you call for?
Oh, I want to find out about rehearsal.
Oh, you do, eh? You want to find out about rehearsal? Well, Mr. Harris, for your information, rehearsal was at my house last night.
Was I there?
No.
Well, I can cross that one off.
Now, look, Phil, I think we ought to get something straightened out right now. This is the start of a new season. When I call a rehearsal, I expect everybody to be there, and that includes you. Now, this is your last warning.
Hey, Jackson.
What?
If you didn't need me, I'd be scared to death.
Need you? Phil, I need you like my agent needs a tuxedo. Now hang up and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, Phil.
Good night, Irene.
What a guy. Say, Mary, it's getting kind of late and I'm hungry. Would you like to stay for dinner?
Oh, sure, Jack, I'd love to.
Where's Dennis?
Well, he went out while you were talking to Phil.
Good, good. I'm going to get Rochester started with dinner.
Okay, I'll just sit in here and play the piano. Oh, gee, this thing is out of tune. What a piano. No wonder nobody puts nickels in it anymore. You'd think he'd at least... Oh, Jack. Never mind, I'll get it. Hello, Don.
Well, hello, Mary. Is Jack in?
Yes, is he expecting you?
Yeah, Jack brought me a gift from Europe, and he wanted me to drop by and look at it.
Just look at it?
Well, he said he'd give it to me today if I promised not to expect anything for Christmas.
Oh, well, come on in.
Mary, I envied you and Jack traveling all over Europe.
Well, I must say it was exciting, Don. We had so much fun in London, Paris, Rome, Venice, and...
Venice? Jack didn't tell me about that.
Well, he wouldn't.
What are you laughing at, Mary?
Well, Jack will never tell you, so I will.
Well, go ahead, Mary. I'd love to hear it.
Well, after Jack finished his engagement at the London Palladium, we went to Paris. From Paris, we went to Rome. And while in Rome, we decided to go to Venice.
Gosh, those canals must be fascinating.
Oh, they are, Don. Anyway, we arrived at night, checked into the Grand Denali Hotel, and the next morning I met Jack in the lobby. Jack, did you get the tickets for the sightseeing tour?
Yes, Mary, and the gondola will leave in a few minutes. Gee, I'm sure looking forward to it.
Signor Benny,
Yes?
I am the Belle Capitan. The gondola for the sightseeing tour, she's about ready to leave.
Oh, good. Well, we'll be right out.
Grazie.
Oh, Bell Captain, should I bring my coat?
Signorina Livingstone, this is a sunny Italy. We have the same climate you have in California. Bring your coat.
I thought so. Come on, Jack. Gosh, Jack, what a thrill. This is the first time I've ever been in a gondola.
Yeah. I didn't know it held so many people. I'm sure glad we came on this sightseeing tour.
Oh, Jack, the guide is getting up to point out the places of interest.
Yeah. Come on, Mary, let's get closer to him. There's so many interesting things in Venice. I don't want to miss a word he says. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Jack.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Jack, you're close enough to him.
Just a little closer. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Desidero molto di scriverti i famosi storici palazzi che sorcombande, ma questo uomo ha un piede sul mio.
What'd he say? What'd he say? Huh? What'd he say? What'd he say?
In 20 anni che faccio il gondoliere non ho mai visto un animale come questo e ancora mi pesa il piede.
What'd he say? What'd he say? Huh? What'd he say? What'd he say, Mary? What'd he say?
Se basta se io rompo il naso e la testa anche, ancora mi pesa il piede.
What'd he say? What'd he say?
Jack.
Just a minute, Mary. Say, mister, do you understand Italian?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good, good. What did he say?
He said you're standing on his foot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll step back.
Jack!
Mary!
Miss, shall I help you get him back into the boat? Or did you push him?
Certainly not. Please help me. Here, Jack, take my hand.
Easy does it now. There we are.
Thanks, mister. Oh, boy, am I wet.
Io penso lo fiendo, ma lui è dietro in gondola. Un cocciala mia gamba.
What'd he say? What'd he say? Huh? What'd he say?
He said you're dripping on his leg.
Well, if he thinks I'm going to step back again, he's crazy.
Say, wait a minute. Aren't you Jack Benny?
Yes. In sono programma artista che il continente di Europa sono vista.
Wait a minute. I thought you couldn't speak Italian.
What did Mr. Benny say?
He said he was a sensation at the Palladium Theatre in London.
That he could say in Chinese.
Mary, please.
Siamo in piazza che è famoso per le gondoliere che cante.
What'd he say? What'd he say?
He said we are now approaching the plaza, which is famous throughout the world for its singing gondoliers.
Oh, yes, look. All those people sitting out on the pier. Where else would you see anything like this?
Cosciente il fuoco ma se fuggi. Surround and burn, so full impact. E non ti corre presto e non ti struggi. There's no rapport, no pastors wrong. Racy, biamo giantura. Smoke a lucky, tra-la-la-la-la. Nicola, be happy and so lucky, tra-la-la-la-la-la. Racy, biamo giantura. Lucky strike means everything that is
That was wonderful, wasn't it, Mary?
Yes, Jack. And you better sit down. Our gondola's starting to move again.
Gosh, I wouldn't have missed this trip for anything. It's so picturesque here in Venice.
Oh, Jack, look at those signs along the side of the canal.
Signs?
Yeah. I'll see if I can read them as we pass. Prendere un punta. De uno che conosco. Talia tuo berba. Ma non tuo naso. Sperma shave.
Mary, where does it say Burma shave?
On that last sign. Bermuda Radera. That's Burma shave.
Burmata Radera means Burma shave? Holy smoke, I better learn what these Italian words mean.
Why?
I had that on my strawberries this morning. See, I'll just have to...
Jack, sit down. You're rocking the gondola, and we're getting into heavy traffic.
Yeah, just look at all those gondolas going in every direction. So wonder they don't bump into each other. What's that?
It's that man sitting over there in that little boat. He used to work for the traffic department.
What's the matter with him?
He went crazy trying to paint a white line down the middle of the canal.
Oh, well, that is a problem. Why didn't he try watercolors?
Jack, look out!
Mary! Mary!
I knew this was going to happen.
Miss, are you sure you didn't push him?
Of course not. Now help me get in the boat.
Okay.
No, don't grab by the hair. Here, Jack. Here's my hand.
These boats are too narrow.
What do you mean too narrow? You fell off the Queen Mary.
Only one. Gee, I'm cold. I think achoo!
Fratturare un coscia.
Thank you.
He said break a leg.
It sounds so nice in Italian.
Jack, why don't you just sit down and enjoy the ride like everybody else?
Okay, but gee, I'm so wet.
Well, it's your own fault.
Signore e signori, noi al passo il famoso spazio per qualche spesa in Venezia.
The guy just said we're passing the shopping center of Venice.
Oh, yeah.
Look at those little stores right out on the water. Gosh, it's the only place in the world like this.
Yeah, and Mary, look at that store on the end. It specializes in gondola accessories. Manny, Mo, and Luigi. See, the place in Los Angeles must have stolen its name from this one.
Ora, signore e signori, noi passi il famoso americano riunione spazio in Venezia.
The guy just pointed out the famous American rendezvous in Venice called Harry's Bar.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that. See, that's where all the Americans in Venice come for cocktails.
Well, we must go there, Jack.
Yeah, and say, Mary, did I tell you the wonderful joke I made up about Phil Harris? I'm going to do it on our first broadcast.
Oh, look, Jack, you're on a vacation. Forget jokes.
No, Mary, this will be sensational. Now, get this. I'm going to say, this on the first broadcast, I'm going to say that when we were in Venice, Phil Harris went into Harry's bar and sat down at a table with one of the natives. Phil took a drink, and then the native took a drink. Get this. Then Phil took another drink, and the native took another drink. They kept drinking and drinking till the native couldn't see anymore.
What's funny about that?
Mary, don't you get it? Phil is the first guy in the world ever to drink a Venetian blind. Mary, don't you get it? Venetian. Mary.
Here, miss, I'll help you.
Never mind. This time I pushed him.
Good. Paddle on, gondolier.
Oh, solo mio.
Mary.
Mary,
help me.
Jack, we'll be back in just a moment, but first...
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky, strike, be happy, go lucky strike today.
Some taste like this and some like that, but nothing tastes quite like the milder, richer cigarette whose name is Lucky Strike.
When asked who both the people wrote in letters big and bold, it's LSMFT for me. On Lucky's we are sold.
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky strike, be happy, go lucky strike today.
Yes, friends, be happy, go lucky, and enjoy your cigarette. Puff by puff, you'll find Lucky's always give you perfect mildness. In fact, scientific tests prove Lucky Strike is milder than any other principal brand. But mildness is only part of the enjoyment Lucky's give you. You get rich taste, too. All the deep-down enjoyment that comes from truly fine tobacco, because LSMFT, Lucky Strike, means fine tobacco. So, friends, be happy. Go Lucky. Try a carton of Lucky Strike.
Be happy, go lucky, be happy, go lucky strike, be happy, go lucky strike today.
We're a little late, so good night, folks.
Stay tuned in for the new Harold Perry Show, which follows immediately. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You are listening to Chesterton Radio at chestertonradio.com.
Needs the comfort and inspiration of religious faith, for it is faith which helps hold our families together, builds moral and spiritual character. And today, perhaps more than ever before, there's a need to turn to a way of life based on the enduring principles of religion. There are a great many programs of religious nature on NBC Radio, which you'll enjoy hearing this Sunday. Among them, The Art of Living, the National Radio Pulpit, Eternal Light, the Lutheran Hour, the Catholic Hour, and the Hour of Decision conducted by Billy Graham. These are but a few of the broadcasts that will bring you inspiration and comfort not only this Sunday, but on the Sundays to come. Of course, the Easter message will be the highlight event this week. We know you'll enjoy hearing them as a supplement to your visit to the church of your choice. And when you do go to church this Sunday, take the whole family with you.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. What I Saw in America by G.K. Chesterton. Section 3, Chapter 2, Part 1, A Meditation in a New York Hotel. All this must begin with an apology, and not an apologia. When I went wandering about the United States disguised as a lecturer, I was well aware that I was not sufficiently well disguised to be a spy. I was even in the worst possible position to be a sightseer. A lecturer to American audiences can hardly be in the holiday mood of a sightseer. It is rather the audience that is sightseeing, even if it is seeing a rather melancholy sight. Some say that people come to see the lecturer and not to hear him, in which case it seems rather a pity that he should disturb and distress their minds with a lecture. He might merely display himself on a stand or a platform for a stipulated sum, or be exhibited like a monster in a menagerie. The circus elephant is not expected to make a speech, but it is equally true that the circus elephant is not allowed to write a book. His impressions of travel would be somewhat sketchy and perhaps a little over-specialized. In merely travelling from circus to circus, he would, so to speak, move in rather narrow circles. Jumbo, the great elephant, with whom I am hardly so ambitious as to compare myself, before he eventually went to the Barnum show, passed a considerable and I trust happy part of his life in Regent's Park. But if he had written a book on England, founded on his impressions of the Zoo, it might have been a little disproportionate and even misleading in its version of the flora and fauna of that country. He might imagine that lions and leopards were commoner than they are in our hedgerows and country lanes, or the head or neck of the giraffe was as native to our landscapes as a village spire. And that is why I apologize in anticipation for a probable lack of proportion in this work. Like the elephant, I may have seen too much of a specialized enclosure, where a special sort of lions are gathered together. I may exaggerate the territorial as distinct from the vertical space occupied by the spiritual giraffe, for the giraffe may surely be regarded as an example of uplift, and is even, in a manner of speaking, a highbrow. Above all, I shall probably make generalizations that are much too general and are insufficient through being exaggerative. To this sort of doubt all my impressions are subject, and among them the negative generalization with which I shall begin this rambling meditation on American hotels. In all my American wanderings I never saw such a thing as an inn. They may exist, but they do not arrest the traveller upon every road as they do in England and in Europe. The saloons no longer existed when I was there, owing to the recent reform which restricted intoxicants to the wealthier classes. But we feel that the saloons have been there, and, if one may so express it, their absence is still present. They remain in the structure of the street or the idiom of the language, but the saloons were not inns. If they had been inns, it would have been far harder even for the power of modern plutocracy to root them out. There will be a very different chase when the white hart is hunted to the forests or when the red lion turns to bay. But people could not feel about the American saloon as they will feel about the English inns. They could not feel that the prohibitionist, that vulgar chucker out, was chucking Chaucer out of the Tabard and Shakespeare out of the Mermaid. In justice to the American prohibitionists, it must be realized that they were not doing quite such desecration, and that many of them felt the saloon a specially poisonous sort of place. They did feel that drinking places were used only as drug shops, so they have effected the great reconstruction by which it will be necessary to use only drug shops as drinking places. But I am not dealing here with the problem of prohibition, except in so far as it is involved in the statement that the saloons were in no sense inns. Secondly, of course, there are the hotels. There are indeed. There are hotels toppling to the stars, hotels covering the acreage of villages, hotels in multitudinous number, like a mob of Babylonian or Assyrian monuments. But the hotels also are not inns. Broadly speaking, there is only one hotel in America. The pattern of it, which is a very rational pattern, is repeated in cities as remote from each other as the capitals of European empires. You may find that hotel rising among the red blooms of the warm spring woods of Nebraska, or whitened with Canadian snows near the eternal noise of Niagara. And before touching on this solid and simple pattern itself, I may remark that the same system of symmetry runs through all the details of the interior. As one hotel is like another hotel, so one hotel floor is like another hotel floor. If the passage outside your bedroom door, or hallway, as it is called, contains, let us say, a small table with a green vase and a stuffed flamingo or some trifle of the sort, you may be perfectly certain that there is exactly the same table, vase, and flamingo on every one of the 32 landings of that towering habitation. This is where it differs most, perhaps, from the crooked landings and unexpected levels of the old English inns, even when they call themselves hotels. To me there was something weird, like a magic multiplication, in the exquisite sameness of these suites. It seemed to suggest the still atmosphere of some eerie psychological story. I once myself entertained the notion of a story in which a man was to be prevented from entering his house, the scene of some crime or calamity, by people who painted and furnished the next house to look exactly like it. The assimilation going to the most fantastic lengths, such as altering the numbering of houses in the street. I came to America and found an hotel fitted and upholstered throughout for the enactment of my phantasmal fraud. I offer the skeleton of my story with all humility to some of the admirable lady writers of detective stories in America, to Miss Carolyn Wells or Miss Mary Roberts Rinehart or Mrs. A.K. Green of the unforgotten Leavenworth case. Surely it might be possible for the unsophisticated Nimrod K. Moose of Yellow Dog Flat to come to New York and be entangled somehow in this net of repetitions or recurrences. Surely something tells me that his beautiful daughter, the Rose of Red Murder Gulch, might seek for him in vain amid the apparently unmistakable surroundings of the 32nd floor, while he was being quietly butchered by the floor clerk on the 33rd floor, an agent of the Green Claw, that formidable organization, and all because the two floors looked exactly alike to the virginal Western eye. The original point of my own story was that the man to be entrapped walked into his own house after all, in spite of it being differently painted and numbered, simply because he was absent-minded and used to taking a certain number of mechanical steps. This would not work in the hotel, because a lift has no habits. It is typical of the real tameness of machinery that even when we talk of a man turning mechanically, we only talk metaphorically, for it is something that a mechanism cannot do. But I think there is only one real objection to my story of Mr. Moose in the New York hotel, and that is, unfortunately, a rather fatal one. It is that far away in the remote desolation of Yellow Dog, among those outlying and outlandish rocks that almost seem to rise beyond the sunset, there is undoubtedly an hotel of exactly the same sort, with all its floors exactly the same. Anyhow, the general plan of the American hotel is commonly the same, and, as I have said, it is a very sound one so far as it goes. When I first went into the big New York hotels, the first impression was certainly its bigness. It was called the Biltmore, and I wondered how many national humorists had made the obvious comment of wishing they had built less. But it was not merely the Babylonian size and scale of such things. It was the way in which they are used. They are used almost as public streets, or rather as public squares. My first impression was that I was in some sort of high street or marketplace during a carnival or revolution. True, the people looked rather rich for a revolution and rather grave for a carnival, but they were congested in great crowds that moved slowly, like people passing through an overcrowded railway station. Even in the dizzying heights of such a skyscraper there could not possibly be room for all those people to sleep in the hotel, or even to dine in it. And as a matter of fact they did nothing whatever except drift into it and drift out again. Most of them had no more to do with the hotel than I have with Buckingham Palace. I have never been in Buckingham Palace, and I have very seldom, thank God, been in the big hotels of this type that exist in London or Paris. But I cannot believe that mobs are perpetually pouring through the Hotel Cecil or the Savoy in this fashion, calmly coming in at one door and going out of the other. But this fact is part of the fundamental structure of the American hotel. It is built upon a compromise that makes it possible. The whole of the lower floor is thrown open to the public streets and treated as a public square. But above it and all round it runs another floor in the form of a sort of deep gallery, furnished more luxuriously and looking down on the moving mobs beneath. No one is allowed on this floor except the guests or clients of the hotel. As I have been one of them myself, I trust it is not unsympathetic to compare them to active anthropoids who can climb trees, and so look down in safety on the herds or packs of wilder animals wandering and prowling below. Of course there are modifications to this architectural plan, but they are generally approximations to it. It is the plan that seems to suit the social life of the American cities. There is generally something like a ground floor that is more public, a half floor or gallery above that is more private, and above that the bulk of the block of bedrooms, the huge hive with its innumerable and identical cells. The ladder of ascent in this tower is, of course, the lift, or, as it is called in America, the elevator. With all that we hear of American hustle and hurry, it is rather strange that Americans seem to like more than we do to linger upon very long words. And indeed there is an element of delay in their diction and spirit, very little understood, which I may discuss elsewhere. Anyhow, they say elevator when we say lift, just as they say automobile when we say motor, and stenographer when we say typist, or sometimes by a slight confusion typewriter. Which reminds me of another story that never existed, about a man who was accused of having murdered and dismembered his secretary when he had only taken his typing machine to pieces. But we must not dwell on these digressions. The Americans may have another reason for giving long and ceremonious titles to the lift. When I first came among them, I had a suspicion that they possessed and practiced the new and secret religion, which was the cult of the elevator. I fancied they worshipped the lift, or at any rate worshipped in the lift. The details or data of this suspicion it were now vain to collect, as I have regretfully abandoned it, except in so far as they illustrate the social principles underlying the structural plan of the building. Now, an American gentleman invariably takes off his hat in the lift. He does not take off his hat in the hotel, even if it is crowded with ladies. But he always so salutes a lady in the elevator, and this marks the difference of atmosphere. The lift is a room, but the hotel is a street. But during my delusion, of course, I assumed that he uncovered in this tiny temple merely because he was in church. There is something about the very word elevator that expresses a great deal of this vague but idealistic religion. Perhaps that flying chapel will eventually be ritualistically decorated like a chapel, possibly with a symbolic scheme of wings. Perhaps a brief religious service will be held in the elevator as it ascends, in a few well-chosen words touching the utmost for the highest. Possibly he would consent even to call the elevator a lift, if he could call it an uplift. There would be no difficulty except what I cannot but regard as the chief moral problem of all optimistic modernism. I mean the difficulty of imagining a lift which is free to go up if it is not also free to go down. The end of Section 3, Chapter 2, Part 1.
This is Chesterton Radio, the true, good, and beautiful at chestertonradio.com.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. What I Saw in America by G.K. Chesterton. Section 4, Chapter 2, A Meditation in a New York Hotel, Part 2. I think I know my American friends and acquaintances too well to apologize for any levity in these illustrations. Americans make fun of their own institutions, and their own journalism is full of such fanciful conjectures. The tall building is itself artistically akin to the tall story. The very word skyscraper is an admirable example of an American lie. But I can testify quite as eagerly to the solid and sensible advantages of the symmetrical hotel. It is not only a pattern of vases and stuffed flamingos. It is also an equally accurate pattern of cupboards and baths. It is a dignified and humane custom to have a bathroom attached to every bedroom, and my impulse to sing the praises of it brought me once at least into a rather quaint complication. I think it was in the city of Dayton. Anyhow, I remember there was a laundry convention going on in the same hotel, in a room very patriotically and properly festooned with the stars and stripes, and doubtless full of promise for the future of laundering. I was interviewed on the roof within earshot of this debate, and may have been the victim of some association or confusion. Anyhow, after answering the usual questions about labor, the League of Nations, the length of ladies' dresses, and other great matters, I took refuge in a rhapsody of warm and well-deserved praise of American bathrooms. The editor, I understand, running a gloomy eye down the column in his contributor's story, and seeing nothing but metaphysical terms such as justice, freedom, the abstract disapproval of sweating, swindling, and the like, paused at last upon the ablutionary allusion, and his eye brightened. "That's the only copy in the whole thing," he said. "A bathtub in every home." So these words appeared in enormous letters above my portrait in the paper. It will be noted that, like many things that practical men make a great point of, they miss the point. What I had commended as new and national was a bathroom in every bedroom. Even feudal and moss-grown England is not entirely ignorant of an occasional bathtub in the home. But what gave me great joy was what followed. I discovered with delight that many people, glancing rapidly at my portrait with its prodigious legend, imagined that it was a commercial advertisement, and that I was a very self-advertising commercial traveller. When I walked about the streets, I was supposed to be travelling in bathtubs. Consider the caption of the portrait, and you will see how similar it is to true commercial slogan. We offer a bathtub in every home. And this charming error was doubtless clinched by the fact that I had been found haunting the outer courts of the temple of the ancient Guild of Lavenders. I never knew how many shared the impression. I regret to say that I only traced it with certainty in 2 individuals. But I understand that it included the idea that I had come to the town to attend the laundry convention, and had made an eloquent speech to that senate, no doubt exhibiting my tubs. Such was the penalty of too passionate and unrestrained an admiration for American bathrooms. Yet the connection of ideas, however inconsequent, does cover the part of social practice for which these American institutions can really be praised. About everything like laundry or hot or cold water, there is not only organization, but what does not always, or perhaps often, go with it, efficiency. Americans are particular about these things of dress and decorum, and it is a virtue which I very seriously recognize, though I find it very hard to emulate. But with them it is a virtue. It is not a mere convention, still less a mere fashion. It is really related to human dignity rather than to social superiority. The really glorious thing about the American is that he does not dress like a gentleman. He dresses like a citizen, or a civilized man. His puritanic particularity on certain points is really detachable from any definite social ambitions. These things are not a part of getting into society, but merely of keeping out of savagery. Those millions and millions of middling people, that huge middle class, especially of the Middle West, are not near enough to any aristocracy, even to be sham aristocrats, or to be real snobs. But their standards are secure, and though I do not really travel in a bathtub, or believe in the bathtub philosophy and religion, I will not on this matter recoil misanthropically from them. I prefer the tub of Dayton to the tub of Diogenes. On these points there is really something a million times better than efficiency, and that is something like equality. In short, the American hotel is not America, but it is American. In some respects it is as American as the English inn is English, and it is symbolic of that society in this, among other things, that it does tend too much to uniformity, but that very uniformity disguises not a little natural dignity. The old Romans boasted that their republic was a nation of kings. If we really walked abroad in such a kingdom, we might very well grow tired of the sight of a crowd of kings, of every man with a gold crown on his head or an ivory sceptre in his hand. But it is arguable that we ought not to grow tired of the repetition of crowns and sceptres any more than of the repetition of flowers and stars. The whole imaginative effort of Walt Whitman was really an effort to absorb and animate these multitudinous modern repetitions, and Walt Whitman would be quite capable of including in his lyric litany of optimism a list of the 999 identical bathrooms. I do not sneer at the generous effort of the giant, though I think, when all is said, that it is a criticism of modern machinery that the effort should be gigantic as well as generous. While there is so much repetition, there is little repose. It is the pattern of a kaleidoscope rather than a wallpaper, a pattern of figures running and even leaping like the figures in a zoetrope. But even in the groups where there was no hustle, there was often something of homelessness. I do not mean merely that they were not dining at home, but rather that they were not at home, even when dining, and dining at their favourite hotel. They would frequently start up and dart from the room at a summons from the telephone. It may have been fanciful, but I could not help feeling a breath of home, as from a flap or flutter of St. George's Cross, when I first sat down in a Canadian hostelry and read the announcement that no such telephonic or other summonses were allowed in the dining-room. It may have been a coincidence, and there may be American hotels with this merciful proviso and Canadian hotels without it. But the thing was symbolic, even if it was not evidential. I felt as if I stood indeed upon English soil in a place where people like to have their meals in peace. The process of the summons is called paging, and consists of sending a little boy with a large voice through all the halls and corridors of the building, making them resound with a name. The custom is common, of course, in clubs and hotels, even in England, but in England it is a mere whisper compared with the wail with which the American page repeats the formula of calling Mr. So-and-so. I remember a particularly crowded parterre in the somewhat smoky and oppressive atmosphere of Pittsburgh, through which wandered a youth with a voice the like of which I have never heard in the land of the living, a voice like the cry of a lost spirit saying again and again forever, "Carling Mr. Anderson." One felt that he never would find Mr. Anderson. Perhaps there never had been any Mr. Anderson to be found. Perhaps he and everyone else wandered in abyss of bottomless skepticism, and he was but the victim of one out of numberless nightmares of eternity, as he wandered a shadow with shadows, and wailed by impassable streams. This is not exactly my philosophy, but I feel sure it was his, and it is a mood that may frequently visit the mind in the centres of highly active and successful industrial civilization. Such are the first idle impressions of the great American hotel, gained by sitting for the first time in its gallery and gazing on its drifting crowds with thoughts equally drifting. The first impression is of something enormous and rather unnatural, an impression that is gradually tempered by experience of the kindliness and even the tameness of so much of that social order. But I should not be recording the sensations with sincerity if I did not touch in passing the note of something unearthly about that vast system to an insular traveller who sees it for the first time. It is as if he were wandering in another world among the fixed stars, or were still in an ideal utopia of the future. Yet I am not certain, and perhaps the best of all news is that nothing is really new. I sometimes really have a fancy that many of these new things in new countries are but the resurrections of old things which have been wickedly killed or stupidly stunted in old countries. I have looked over the sea of little tables in some light and airy open-air café, and my thoughts have gone back to the plain wooden bench and wooden table that stands solitary and weather-stained outside so many neglected English inns. We talk of experimenting in the French café as of some fresh and almost impudent innovation. But our fathers had the French café in the sense of the free and easy table in the sun and air. The only difference was that the French democracy was allowed to develop its café or multiply its tables, while English plutocracy prevented any such popular growth. Perhaps there are other examples of old types and patterns lost in the old oligarchy and saved in the new democracies. I am haunted with a hint that the new structures are not so very new, and that they remind me of something very old. As I look from the balcony floor, the crowd seems to float away and the colours to soften and grow pale, and I know I am in one of the simplest and most ancestral of human habitations. I am looking down from the old wooden gallery upon the courtyard of an inn. This new architectural model which I have described is, after all, one of the oldest European models, now neglected in Europe, and especially in England. It was the theatre in which were enacted innumerable picaresque comedies and romantic plays, with figures ranging from Sancho Panza to Sam Weller. It served as the apparatus, like some gigantic toy set up in bricks and timber, for the ancient and perhaps eternal game of tennis. The very terms of the original game were taken from the inn courtyard, and the players scored accordingly as they hit the buttery hatch or the roof. Singular speculations, however, in my mind, as the scene darkens and the quadrangle below begins to empty in the last hours of night. Some day, perhaps, this huge structure will be found standing in solitude like a skeleton, and it will be the skeleton of the spotted dog or the blue boar. It will wither and decay until it is worthy at last to be a tavern. I do not know whether men will play tennis on its ground floor, with various scores and prizes for hitting the electric fan, or the lift, or the head waiter. Perhaps the very words will only remain as part of some such rustic game. Perhaps the electric fan will no longer be electric, and the elevator will no longer elevate, and the waiter will only wait to be hit. But at least it is only by the decay of modern plutocracy, which seems already to have begun, that the secret of the structure, even of this plutocratic place, can stand revealed. And after long years, when its lights are extinguished, and only the long shadows inhabit its halls and vestibules, there may come a new noise like thunder of D'Artagnan knocking at the door. The end of section 4. The end of chapter 2.